We're here with Matthew Scott, who some may recognize from Jersey Boys or a bunch of other different professional gigs around New York City. Why don't you talk a little bit about your journey as an actor and what brought you to New York in the first place?
Well, I'm originally from a small town in New Jersey, not far from the city, about 18 miles. So as a kid, I traveled in all the time to see shows. My parents would take me in, and I had an interest very early on. I was actually in the hallways of my high school. I think I was in 4th grade or so, and my mom was a cheerleading coach. And on rainy days, they'd have to take the team inside and practice in the hallways, and it was after school and I was a kid, so I'd hang around in the hallways for her to finish teaching. And I started to hear play rehearsal going on around the corner in the auditorium, and I peeked in there, and I would just sneak in there every day and kind of watch. And I asked my mom to take me to see the show, so she took me the first night. I think the first one we saw was either Guys and Dolls or Sweeney Todd. The point is, I made her take me back the next 5 nights in a row. So it kind of started there. I knew that I had an interest in theater at a fairly early age, and I began singing shortly thereafter, working with my choral teacher in middle school. I hated the lunchroom. I hated how noisy it was, and so I asked him if I could, I think starting in 6th grade, if I could spend my lunch break in the music room and just kind of rifle through music. And eventually he would sit down and start to play something, and we began to sing a little bit, and eventually he wound up being my voice teacher of 15 years or so, up until I went off to college and beyond that. So we worked together, and I spent every day, every lunch period, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in middle school, going into the music room and learning songs like Gershwin and Cole Porter and Harold Arlen, Johnny Mercer. I started learning that stuff first, really, before the kind of modern Broadway hits of the day like Les Mis and Miss Saigon.
What was your college experience like? Did you go to a performing arts college?
I did. I didn't know a lot about colleges when I was in high school, and unfortunately I had some help from a couple of teachers who pointed me in the right direction, and one of the places they pointed me was to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which I had never heard of. And I had applied to some other local schools, and I had applied to some places that I knew of, smaller programs, and I thought I'll add Carnegie Mellon to the mix. They were auditioning at Ripley Greer Studios, 528th Avenue, and so I went and auditioned, and I think I sang Finishing the Hat from Sunday in the Park with George, and I think it was kind of funny because I had no business singing the song. The veins were bulging out of my neck as I was trying to hit the high notes. For some reason they accepted me, so that's where I went.
Maybe it was your determination and you trying to sing that song.
I think so. I think, what's kind of surprising is that I had a decent grasp at the time on what I thought it was about. For me, that song has changed so much over the years, and I know it'll continue to. But at the time, I think I was being sincere and being real. I wasn't trying to do an impersonation or imitate a recording that I had listened to obsessively, which a lot of kids who do audition for colleges, because I also coach kids for their college auditions, a lot of them come in trying to mimic what they've heard, and the first thing I want to do is pull them away from that, because it doesn't do them any good.
Right.
And the best way to do that is to go back to the roots of where I started, which is with Gershwin and Porter and Arlen. There's no definitive recording, there's no singular version of It's Wonderful or They Can't Take That Away From Me. So you're not trying to impersonate somebody's riffs and runs, and you're just trying to find and discover the song yourself. And I paired Finishing the Hat with a classic song like that. And, I had a great 4 years at Carnegie Mellon. It was absolutely the best possible place for me to go.
After Carnegie Mellon, what was your first professional role out of school?
Well, I came back home. I lived at home for a while because of the proximity to New York. It was just easy. And I think the first thing I might have done, I had worked professionally on the summers between my freshman, sophomore, and junior years of college. I had done Paper Mill Playhouse, 2 shows of Paper Mill in the summers, and I had done the Muni, and I had done Pittsburgh CLO. I think the first professional show after that was I I played Houdini in Ragtime at the Paper Mill. Uh, they're very minimalized, kind of pared down version of Ragtime that Stafford Arima directed. So I did that right out of Carnegie Mellon, and then from there I went and did Tick Tick Boom at the Alliance in Atlanta. And shortly thereafter, maybe within a year or so, I wound up booking Jersey Boys here in New York.
Something no one's ever heard of.
Yeah,
Terrible
nobody
show.
knows that show.
What was it like being thrust into a show that had such critical acclaim?
I actually really was thrust into it. The show had opened. It had only been open a couple of months, and they needed another cover for the role of Tommy DeVito. They needed somebody who could come in and cover that part that Christian Hoff eventually won a Tony Award for. And so I went in with that material. I auditioned for Tommy, and I also had to prepare Bob Gaudio sides, and then they also asked for Frankie Valli material. So I was really running the gamut.
I was going to say,
covering,
that's a very
yeah,
big vocal spectrum.
And I booked it. And I wound up covering eventually over the course of the 2 years I did the show. I did it on and off. I did a year and a half, and then I left the show, and then I came back and did another 6 months. I covered and performed 8 male roles in the show. And my first year and a half was as an offstage swing, so I was hired to cover Tommy and Bob and Frankie, Joe Pesci, and a few of the other roles.
Right.
And I was thrown right into rehearsals for Tommy DeVito. That was my first priority. And I started to learn the part, and within a week, they had an issue with people being sick. And so on a Tuesday night, I was told that I was going on for Joe Pesci on Wednesday afternoon, and that I should go home and learn the lines. And I came in that Wednesday afternoon at 11 a.m. before the matinee. I had music rehearsal, learned the music, then went onto the stage, learned the blocking, where to put the chairs and tables on certain spike marks. And then I had a choreography brush up, or actually I had a choreography rehearsal because I hadn't learned it yet. And I went on that afternoon as Joe Pesci.
How daunting was that, knowing that people were coming to see a show as huge as Jersey Boys, and you're getting thrown on, and you've been learning every
It was apparent to me that it was sink or swim, you know. A friend of mine, Ed Dixon, who's been in 900 Broadway shows, said to me, well, you're going to find out really soon if you're cut out to be a swing. Mm-hmm. And that's just how my brain works. Stuff kind of goes in quickly. So it was daunting and it was scary, but it was exciting. You know, I was 20 blah 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 years old, and I had a chance to prove myself in a hit Broadway show, and it really went terrific. Aside from the very beginning of the show, which starts with a hip hop number, which the dancing was totally down. I'm from New Jersey, a white guy from New Jersey, no business dancing hip hop to this day. I still contest I did it pretty well. But the music started with bum, 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 bum. And I was jumping up and down behind the gate, which was about to rise, and I turned to Peter Gregus, who plays Bob Crewe, and I said, I don't have my microphone on. So the first 10 minutes of the show I spent without a microphone. It was kind of hilarious. You know, somebody ran upstairs to get it for me. It was amazing. And oddly enough, 3 days later, on Saturday, I was called in Saturday morning to do the exact same thing for a totally different role that I had yet to start. So within the course of a week and a half, I had performed 2 roles that I had never officially rehearsed. It was baptism by fire.
Yeah.
You know, it was amazing and it was exciting, and I don't know, I wonder if with any other show if it would have been as exciting, because the audience was so pumped and so fueled.
Still to this day.
And yeah, oh my gosh, and I saw it recently and I felt the same way. I was like, this show is still as fresh and good as it was, you know, when we did it 6 years ago. So
this is a 2-part question, which I think I know the answer to, the first part, but which was more vocally demanding of the roles? Was it Frankie? And on top of that, which role did you enjoy performing the most? Yeah. Whether it be the vocally demanding.
No, that's a good question. I did Frankie a couple of dozen times, which is a decent amount. You know, I wasn't a first cover, but I went on enough. And it was demanding. You know, when I was in college and I was studying, there wasn't Jersey Boys. So people weren't practicing that kind of singing.
Right.
They had other stuff to work on, and there's stuff that was comparable, and certainly jukebox musicals had been created, so people knew that they needed to have a vocabulary for that style of singing, but for that kind of falsetto and for that endurance, we just didn't know. And now, you know, you go to college and you're like, let's work on the Jersey Boys stuff because in 5 years I'm going to be in Jersey Boys, and that wasn't the case.
And the stamina that you need to be on the stage the whole time.
Well,
more
Frankie
so, really doesn't leave.
No, he doesn't, and more so than that, it's the acting of the role. It's the, you know, the young kid that turns into this adult who's lived this very, very full life. I have to say, it was kind of crazy. For me, the falsetto stuff, and I think probably a few of the actors who have played it might agree, the falsetto stuff is some of the easier stuff in the show. It's daunting because the first time you do it, you're like, holy shit, am I allowed to curse?
You're absolutely
Great.
allowed to curse.
I'm from New Jersey, so holy shit, you're like, is this going to come out? And furthermore, is it going to last me the next 2.5 hours? And you realize how much sound and power you have coming back at you, and you kind of ease off the gas pedal a little bit, and that allows you to enter into it a little more easily. It's the second half of the show when the character starts to age and the voice starts to drop and the songs start to get placed more in the chest, and they're more emotionally attacked. You know, there's something fun and frilly about doing Sherry and Walk Like a Man. Those are great songs. It's when the character sings My Eyes Adored You or Fallen Angel or Working My Way Back to You that the lyrics actually take on a bit more meaning, and so all these other elements combine, and it's tricky. You know, overall in the show, I think I really loved playing Bob Gaudio. That was the part for me where I felt the most attached. And in that first 1.5 years, I did it a lot. And I just loved doing the part. When I left the show, I went off to do another show called Catered Affair out at the Old Globe, and then around the corner here at the Walter Kerr. And shortly after that closed, they called me back into Jersey Boys to take over an on-stage ensemble track and also still cover. And I said, do me a favor, please don't make me have to cover Frankie anymore. And they said, we won't. And it was that second time around that I really started to enjoy sinking my teeth into Tommy. That was a character that, it was odd to me that over the course of those 2-3 years, my journey with the show, that it had changed for me in that way. But I had a lot more fun with that guy. I'm from New Jersey. I know those guys, you know, and I know Tommy. So it was a fun thing for me to play as I got older.
What was one of the biggest things that you learned being in a show of that caliber, and then that you have taken with you from the show that has helped you in your roles prior?
You know, it's interesting.
Not prior. Your roles after.
I get you. I don't, you know,
good that
I
you
don't
understood
know.
me.
I did. I'm with you. New Jersey. I don't know that anything revelatory occurred during that time. I think some ideas and some principles were kind of made firmer in my mind. And things were reinforced, and all the stuff I had learned at Carnegie Mellon and really kind of came to light for me in a way that I could understand, because you spend 4 years in college and people tell you this is what it's going to be like, and you go,
yeah.
And then the day comes and you're like, fuck. For me, honestly, it's about being as prepared as you can at all times. Same goes with auditioning and having your audition book in good shape and being aware of the shows that are being produced and the new things that are coming out and knowing who you are. Jersey Boys, for me, kind of allowed me to grow and still work at the same time and audition. So I wasn't an unemployed kid who was like trying to figure out what he did. I was this kid in a hit show who, and even though I was an offstage swing, you know, there was a lot of attention being thrown on the show, and it allowed me to grow and develop and work on other things in the meantime, yet make a paycheck. And, you know, it was the gift that keeps on giving, I have to say.
And speaking of giving, what are you currently working on? And I know you just said you wrapped a show.
Yeah, I just finished doing Company at the Signature Theater in Arlington, Virginia for my friend Eric Schaefer. And it was my 4th show there. I've done a few shows with Eric. The first show I did with him was a show called Ace. We did that in 2008 or 2009, and then we did a great review called First You Dream, which is the music of Kander and Ebb, like a 23-piece orchestra. We did that at Signature and then again at the Kennedy Center, and hoping that that moves on eventually. But yeah, I just finished doing Bobby and Company. It was amazing. It was daunting, and it was not something I anticipated at this stage in my life. But Eric called me 10 months beforehand and said, "I want you to do this." And my first thought was, what the hell is wrong with him? Like, I could give you 10 guys who can do it better than I can, who are more right for it. And I spent the next 10 months panicking.
Which is a matter of your opinion.
For sure. And I'm sure some choice audience members
well,
too.
Well, those two, but no one gives a crap about them. Yeah.
But no, I spent 10 months kind of thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to get ready for this? And I talked to a lot of people about it. It's funny, when I was at Carnegie Mellon, Billy Porter directed Company. He directed a production in Company, and Billy and I had done some concert promotional stuff together during the months leading up to it, and I was talking to him about it because I saw the production so many times, and he just kept saying, "Boo, just be yourself, just be yourself," and I didn't understand what that meant, you know.
The boo part, or to be yourself?
The boo. I was like, what the hell is he talking about? I'm from New Jersey.
I'm from Jersey.
Boo? Anyways, so it was a fun part for me. It was difficult. It was taxing. Totally worth the ride. And of course, at the very last moment, things begin to click for you, and you're like, ah, shit! I wish I had 6 more weeks to do this.
Yeah.
Someday. I'm still young enough to hopefully do it again next time they revive it. No.
And you mentioned that you do have a project coming up.
I do. I can't actually at the moment say what it is, but I do have something coming up in the fall. And I'm always doing concerts and teaching and things like that. I work for an organization called the Broadway Dreams Foundation.
Oh, with Nicholas Rodriguez.
Yeah, with Nick Rodriguez, who's a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
And my wife and I both work for them. And we were just in Omaha teaching. And yeah, I have a bunch of concerts coming up at the Kauffman Center, which is right by Lincoln Center, uptown at 67th. It's a great little space. And so next couple of months are filled up. I also do some performing with some former Jersey Boys friends, Jared Spector and Dominic Scaglione and Dominic Nolfi. Two Dominics for the price of one.
Yeah, can't get better than that.
It's called the Doo-Wop Project. It's all doo-wop music, and we kind of put spin on some more contemporary hits. It's a fun group, so we have a bunch of dates booked for that as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So we will look forward to hearing some of those upcoming concerts. And
I hope so.
Hopefully in the fall, maybe we can talk again and talk about what you're talking about.
I'll let you know what's going on. It's not that deep.
Hey, it doesn't matter. Hey, it's still a project.
It is.
So when you can get back to us, you get back to us.
I will. All right.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Matt.
man.